Hey guys, welcome back to Young Americans Abroad, your best place for weekly content on young American soccer players playing overseas. My name is Austin Van Turen.
My name is Patrick Ferry.
And guys, welcome to our show. So guys, we're back again this week after a nice little break over 4th of July, Pat. We had some fun time with our families and was able to watch a little footy. And yeah, we're back to talk some American footy today.
That's right. And it is good to be back talking about that American footy, Austin. But yeah, it was nice, like you said, to just take some time. Obviously, you can't do much, but just kind of, be with the family, maybe grill out, things like that. Whatever you can do that doesn't involve going out.
Yeah, exactly. It's a crazy world we live in nowadays. But yeah, we got a lot of European leagues still playing their seasons. Obviously, the Bundesliga kind of just wrapped up its schedule of games. So yeah, and I also have the the MLS jersey on.
That's right.
Just MLS is back. Hopefully, it will be back. Obviously, right now it's not looking promising.
But no, I know there's a lot of concerns in the whole FC Dallas situation and just for sports in general, Austin. It's crazy.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better. But today we have a lot of exciting storylines to talk about. So first, we want to talk about one of our players continuing his good play and also winning several Man of the Match awards.
That's awesome, and heading over to Germany, an American defender. Helped his club succeed and win the German third division. So that's great.
Yeah, that was good to see. And we also have one of our players helping his team survive and stay in the Bundesliga for another year. So all that and more in today's episode.
All right, guys, we're going to start over in the Premier League with Chelsea and Christian Pulisic. We'll start back with an earlier midweek game and a 3-2 loss to West Ham, where he did go the full 90 and start and really impressed Austin. He earned both fouls that led to Willian goals. So obviously Willian benefited greatly from Pulisic's skills and able to draw some fouls. And he actually had this nice silky touch around Diop that brought him down in the penalty box. And then in the second half had a darting run through the midfield, just bypassed everyone pretty easily, where he was eventually brought down and Willian was able to convert a really nice free kick. So again, that was great to see the man of the match impact as well, Austin, as this most recent game on Saturday, I believe. It's a 3-0 win against Watford, where he, again dominated and saw another man of the match performance. So really great for Christian, where he had 4 fouls, 3 shots on target. He had one also that just narrowly went over. A nice combination, kind of curled it around and went over top of the goal. But yeah, all in all, Austin, he is really on fire since kind of returning to action here and starting some games for Lampard.
Yeah, he's definitely been Chelsea's most influential player, to say the least. Yeah, it's been crazy just ever since, coming back from, the COVID layover, period where play was suspended. He's just been on fire. And like you said, Pat, his dribbling has been kind of next level, getting around players and, setting players up too. He's done a really good job in that final third of, looking for the right pass and playing the right pass too. So, yeah, it's been exciting play from Pulisic so far.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And an important point you brought up is just kind of the final third quality, whether it's finishing or assisting, drawing fouls and making those right decisions. As I know, a lot when you were harping on with Dortmund was some of those games where he'd kind of fade or disappear and not just have some great runs and dribbles, but that final third kind of lacking that confidence or quality. And you could really see the improvement and strides he's made, making a jump to this, arguably, the best league in the world, with a really top quality team. And obviously with just kind of this gap in play and coming back and really kind of finishing out the season really strong as they're pushing for that Champions League spot, I think is, just shows testament to all the hard work he's put in.
Yeah, and I think all these men of the match awards he's been picking up really shows that too, and kind of just shows how he's really thrust himself into the forefront of Frank Lampard's mind. I think coming into the return, he was sitting the bench and was thought of maybe more as a super sub. But I think over these past was it now 6 to 7 games,
right,
he's really kind of cemented himself in that starting lineup for Chelsea, and also shown to Frank that he's a player that cannot be dropped no matter what. So I think that's the best part of his run of play so far.
Yeah, Austin, I think that is certainly the best part of the play. And again, all the competition, and you could just see, he wasn't happy earlier in the season. He had that, I know Frank said he had that run of great games before that awful calf injury, all these certain situations and events happening. And
right
now you could just see again, no one, I know we didn't really doubt him at all. And he just has that grit and desire, not the most outspoken player, but just somebody that, off and on the pitch, whether it's the training ground, the games, that he's working as hard as he can. I guarantee you, during that COVID time, he was probably up at 4 a.m. in Hershey, 5 a.m. Whether with his family or whatnot, just training and getting ready and staying in top conditions. So, kind of almost dives into the next subject here too, is just that Hazard comparison. Want to get your thoughts on that? In terms, I know there are players. There's some of their play and taking on players that's similar, and then there is some differences. But just to get those comparisons and really get, I think, Austin, like you mentioned, the man of the match, he had his 5th straight, is really impressive for Chelsea. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and you also had a stat around that too, right? That's kind of a record for Chelsea.
Yeah, record. I think I saw on Twitter there. I believe Hazard has had 4 in a row. I think a few other players were kind of in that 2 or 3. Obviously, accumulated over the years. Hazard has a lot more, obviously, but for those straight games in a row, that's really impressive.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, the Hazard comparison's interesting. I think both players are very skillful dribblers, and maybe not skillful is the right word, but just players who really like to take defenders on and kind of use their pace and change of pace to get by players. So I think there's definitely some similarities there. Where they really differ is kind of that final third, kind of like you said earlier, Pat. And Christian's obviously maturing, and he's still got a ways to go. But I think he's just got to get more of that end product together. And Hazard, I saw numbers comparing Hazard's first year and Pulisic's first year, and they're pretty similar. But the biggest thing that they differed on was chances created. So I think if Christian can just become more of a creator in that final third, and kind of just he's got the confidence now, taking players on middle of the pitch to that final third. I think if he can just feel channel that confidence and kind of understand or put it in perspective and really believe that he's better than any other player on the pitch, I think he can just kind of open up his creativity, so to speak, and kind of just take his game to the next level, and really kind of just embrace the skills he has and the skill that he possesses above other players, and kind of just look to set more players up or look to score more goals himself. And we've kind of seen that in this period, but I think that's kind of where he differs from Hazard a little bit. So what do you think, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, I think all those comparisons are very fair, and agree with most. And in terms of just, again, improving that final third, and what's just been so great about like the trajectory and kind of the stats you're mentioning, and it is just his first, you're getting used to it and all in the Premier League, but you can just kind of see, excuse me, whether it's that desire and will and just being able to produce now in these games, in these string of games that we've seen, adding these kind of elements to the game and just perfecting and continuing to perfect his craft down the road. I think the sky's the limit for him. I think, again, people are worried about his frame and the physicality of the Premier League, but again, Hazard is, a fairly, smaller player, is kind of a bigger frame, but just using the pace and the ability to, you just see him in games in these highlights, Austin, where you can just tell head over heels. He was making Watford and Aston Villa's teams look so foolish, and even against the top teams in the league, when I think it was one of their first games against Liverpool, and some of those other, great Man City, for example, as well, that, he has really kind of found that confidence, found the rhythm in the team there, which is important. Like he kind of mentioned earlier, where he kind of came unnoticed at first, and people are like, "Oh, it's Christian. That's great." They didn't really care, and now he's really producing, and I think that's giving him that confidence. And I'm sure whether it's with the team, giving him praise, the coach, things like that, seeing all the hard work pay off, and I think we're just going to see even more Hazard comparisons as we go.
Yeah, and he's got big boots to fill too. Eden Hazard is no slouch. I think at his peak, and I'm not sure if he's still in his peak, but I think a year ago or even 2 years ago, I think in my opinion, he was a top 10 soccer player in the world. So
yeah, absolutely.
Those comparisons are nothing to laugh at for Christian. I think that's a good I guess position to aim for, and it's cool to see people actually comparing the two players, because that means people are seeing the same skills that one of the best players in the world has. So I think that's all for Christian today. Now let's move over to Germany and talk about Chris Richards. So Chris, this past Saturday started and played 90 minutes in Bayern 2's 1-0 loss. But the big, news on the day was that Bayern 2 actually won the 3 Liga title in Germany. So, that's big, Pat. This is, again, Bayern Munich's 2 team. So, there's certain limitations that they have in winning this league. Basically, since they won it, they won't get promoted to the 2 Bundesliga, just because there's a rule in Germany that, teams and parent clubs, I guess, so to speak, can't be within 2 leagues of each other. So, unfortunately, in winning this 3 Liga title, they won't move up a league, but it's still a pretty big accomplishment, because, and we were talking off camera about this, there's been teams, 2 teams of Bundesliga clubs that have gotten to the 3 Liga. Most recently, I think Wolfsburg and Werder Bremen in like the past 4 to 5 years, but none of them have ever really, hung around in the 3 Liga, or let alone win the 3 Liga. So I think, this title really just shows kind of the quality that Bayern Munich have. And, Chris Richards was a big part of this team all year, whether that was, playing right back, in the 2019 portion of the season. And then in 2020 has kind of been, played primarily as a center back. So I think it's, really cool to see Chris and Bayern 2 win this title. It was really a testament of their quality throughout the season, because they, at the midpoint of the season were pretty much mid-table, Pat, and kind of turned it on in 2020 and really, climbed the ranks. I don't think they had many losses. They lost on the day in this final game, but, that was one of their only losses in 2020. So, just good to see for Chris. This is also his first European trophy. So, hopefully more of them in the future. But, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic feat for the team, and it is unfortunate, Helson, that you can't, keep climbing up and move up the divisions. Right? But, nonetheless, it is great and such an accomplishment for those youth players there. For Richards, especially, coming in and being moved around, like you were saying, asked to be the right back and then also center back, and really getting a plethora of experiences there and fighting to, from that mid-table to get to the top. Is really exciting. And then even, a taste, whether it is with, the Bayern first team in trainings and things like that, where, he really is getting great development. And I think, all of the culminations of his performances, his great heading goals he scored, just really improving on some of those skills, which we touched on in past episodes, and adjusting to the speed of play and when counterattacks occur. I think all this is really going to help, and I'm really excited to see where his career progresses and he kind of goes from here. Will it be a loan move? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we did see him make his debut 2 weeks ago with Bayern. So I think that was, great, and that kind of shows, or I guess renews the fact that he's still in their plans. So yeah, I don't know. We've talked about it on multiple shows, so kind of want to steer clear of it today, just because we've kind of delved into it before. But there's definitely going to be a decision that Chris is going to have to make this summer, whether that's going to be, going on loan somewhere, staying to, hopefully try and fight for a position in Bayern's first team, or, just commit maybe to, trying to fight for that first team place, or, just playing again another season with the 2 team. So, he's got a lot of options, which is good. And I think making his debut kind of gives him another, stone in his cap, or whatever you want to call it, pin in his cap, because, I think some Bundesliga teams might be actually interested in him right now. I don't know if that's the best option for him, just because, consistent playing time at that level, may be hard to come by. It depends on a lot of different clubs' financial situations as well. So, I think he's got a lot of options, and that's a good thing. And I think, before we move on, we just should also mention that this Bayern 2 team also featured several other American eligible players.
Oh, that's right.
So, Taylor Booth got some time at the end of the season. I think he was in 2 to 3 games for them. I know he made his debut in like the 3rd or 4th game to the end of the season. And then Malik Tillman as well. So a German-American, really committed to Germany at the moment. So, we'll see what the future holds. But he's a player that got a lot of minutes for them down the end of the season here, and kind of made his debut, if I'm not mistaken, after the return to play from COVID. But he was really crucial for them in some of these final games. I know he scored 2 goals in one of the games I watched that we talked about a few weeks ago. And then, I think he scored a few goals in games since then. So that's definitely something to watch. Malik is, I believe, still 17. So, very young and performing on a team that, had a lot of talent, like we said, throughout this episode so far. So, it's a shame that he's committed for Germany right now, but, definitely looks a talent, and one that, maybe in the future, if we can kind of woo him over, he could be someone, worth keeping your eye on.
Yeah, that's right, Austin. I think, those players is really great that you touched on them. I know, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Booth had some injury problems there, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little bit there. And then again, like you said, Malik is very young, and whether, the multiple decisions Chris has, I think playing in a league like the 3rd division, where there are some pro teams and there's some hungry veterans, and it's physical, and, they're battling, to get up and stay alive. So I think it was just a great experience and a great year for him, really cementing himself as a starter there. But, yeah. Again, just wanted to, shift gears now to a different league, one we haven't talked about much, and also another defender, American defender here in Shaq Moore, Austin, where, him being involved in Tenerife and got his 6th straight start in a 4th place against 4th place Almira in a 2-1 win. So again, Shaq has been absolutely killing it, Austin, where he's had picked up a few assists, and just looks much more sharper and cleaner in the ball and technical. So it's nice to kind of see him adding those skill sets and being more consistent. Again, he has had, I don't want to go too far back, but just a tumultuous, you could say, club situation in Spain, where financial situations with different clubs, being in La Liga for brief stints, and then also, in rat-infested locker rooms, which we've talked about. So it's kind of nice to see him find a home here and really kind of battle and take his place, where he's had a few substitute appearances here and there and starts. But again, hard to displace some players that have been there for a while, and again, get his 6th straight, like I mentioned. So they're only 2 points back of that final La Liga spot for the promotion playoff, and it'd be great to see him at the top of the table in Spain, the top of the league, I should say.
Yeah, he's really kind of turned it on ever since, Spain's return from that COVID suspension. And it's really good to see. It was a player, kind of like you said, Pat, that was kind of frozen out of that lineup there for the first half of the season. But, since return to play, he's kind of made a name for himself and has gotten, Tenerife right there in a good spot for potentially getting promoted. So, good for Shaq. It's been kind of a up and down few years, but good it's
Yeah,
up
it,
right
it,
now at the moment.
it really has, Austin. And again, wanted to highlight, maybe why there were some areas where he wasn't getting all those starts. And right back, they had Luis Perez Maqueda, the 25-year-old, has about over 84, 85 appearances now in the past few years.
Okay.
He did come from some other La Liga teams and teams that were floating the two Liga that were pretty strong and historic teams. So again, a very young player that's kind of hitting that prime in a few years and hard to displace there. So it's kind of nice to see Shaq grind and put his head down, get to work, and now is just absolutely killing it. Where they have also, I don't think I mentioned Austin, they have been undefeated since he's been in those 6 straight games. So
Oh wow, okay.
That's another great and fun stat there to see Shaq be a part of the club's turn and really push to the top flight. And it is interesting too in that right back spot. I want to quickly mention that obviously we have Dest and a few other players, but Shaq Moore is still kind of knocking on the door. I didn't mean to rhyme there. Where if he could be involved in this playoff push and get up to La Liga and still starting here there, we might see him as a really strong backup for the US.
Yeah, we have a few right backs who are in I would say good club situations. Shaq Moore, Serginho Dest, Reggie Cannon, DeAndre Yedlin, at the moment is kind of in a flux period with Newcastle, but definitely players who have talent. So that's really cool. I think the more fullbacks we can have, the better, because that's always been a really tough to find position on our depth chart, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, like you said, listen from those players that we do have a lot of options, which is great to see. So we're really building that right back spot out, and again, just glad to see Shaq Moore putting on some great performances. So guys, if you can't check it out, find some stream online and really root on Tenerife and hope they get the push up to the first division.
Yeah, it's good advice there, Pat. Good advice. So now we want to move over to our final player of the day, and really the big news on the day today, and that revolves around Josh Sargent. So Josh today started and played 88 minutes for Werder Bremen in their big 2-2 draw, but it was a 2-2 win, so to speak, on away goals, and that's in their Pro Rel playoff with Heidenheim. So as we've documented throughout the season, Werder Bremen have not had the best season. Finished in that 17th, or I guess it was 16th spot in the Bundesliga, which was a playoff position. So they played against Heidenheim, drew 0-0 last week, and then today they won again on away goals, 2-2. So a good game from Josh overall. He led to the first goal, which Pat was a nice sequence of passes from Bremen, basically ending with Josh trying to get his foot to a ball and directing it into the path of one of his teammates, or even maybe for himself to shoot. But unfortunately, a Heidenheim defender took the liberty of shooting it, upper 90s into his own net. So it was a very interesting one there. But it helped Bremen. It helped them get an early lead, and then later on in the second half, Heidenheim tied things up. But again, there was Bremen were playing away, so their one goal counted as the win at that time. So Heidenheim needed a second goal, and then in extra time, Bremen scored their second goal to make it 2-1, and they thought that put the game out of reach. Turns out Heidenheim was able to get a penalty basically in the final seconds of extra time, and they scored that penalty. So it ended 2-2, but again, Bremen win on away goals. So Pat, Josh is staying in the Bundesliga. Which
that's great. That's the news we wanted. That's what we wanted, and what a kind of exciting game, honestly, and a little hectic there, but great to see Josh play such a crucial part and a big part in probably the biggest game of his professional career. So, I mean, just to stay financially as well as just club situation for him and where he's kind of been pushing now and looking better the last few games, just an overall great situation, great news for the player and the club.
Yeah, yeah, you make a good point. This was definitely the most important game of his career so far. This was definitely a very nerve-wracking game. Kind of like you said, it was a good game, and one where Bremen felt a lot of pressure, especially after that 0-0 draw earlier in the week. Coming into this game, it was kind of up for grabs, that final place in the Bundesliga. So yeah, yeah, and I think, like you said, Pat, this is exactly what we needed for Josh. Again, I'm partial to German soccer, and I've had my eye on the two Bundesliga before for some of the other players we're talking about, and I've watched my fair share of two Bundesliga games. So I think Josh could have stood out and scored a good amount of goals in the two Bundesliga. I'm just not sure if that would have been a very low risk way to improve. I think there's a lot of risk going down, especially with a team like Bremen. You've seen Hamburg really struggle to find their way back to the Bundesliga over the past 3 years. So you don't want to see players and see a team get into that situation. So I think for Josh in this moment right now, I think the best thing was staying in the Bundesliga, which looked very bleak throughout this whole part of the 2020 season. And I think getting those reps next year against Bundesliga talent, I think will just help him improve his game even more. We were kind of talking off camera, Pat, before this episode, and I think it was very apparent today. Josh had several chances to score in this game. Really had a nice move in the second half to get himself open in the final third. And get a shot off. Unfortunately, it was blocked by the goalkeeper. But he's doing so many things right, kind of up until, the box or up until the final third. He's really doing well at improving his hold-up play. His one-touch passing, in my opinion, is very good, especially for a 20-year-old striker playing in one of the top leagues in the world. And just, kind of his decision-making has improved. In his time in the starting lineup in 2020. So I think he's got all of the assets to his game, all the facets of his game, besides the finishing. The finishing is really the only thing he's really lacking at the moment. I think looking at Bremen's season, obviously, it's been a tough season. Service hasn't been very consistent. There's been games where he's literally not gotten a shot off and he's played, 60 plus minutes. But I think it was kind of apparent in some of these games down the stretch that he's getting opportunities and he's not, finishing them, unfortunately. So, I think that'll come and kind of tying into the point I'm trying to make here. I think, another season in the Bundesliga, he's still 20 years old, so he's still going to get some of that, just benefit of the doubt, so to speak, since he's so young. And I think that'll help him get more and more opportunities. But I just am really impressed, since he's found his groove here at the end of the season and has gotten more playing time. I've been really impressed with, that hold-up play. Like I said, the one-touch passing is great, and it was on showcase in this game as well. And then just, kind of taking the ball at his feet and making good decisions. I think he's doing all those things well. It's just got to be, finally finishing and getting that final boost of confidence. And I think once he gets that, I think he's going to be a lock starter, Pat. I really do. I think he's to that point now with all the other, areas of his game that if he can just, add finishing to his game, I think he's going to be, one of Bremen's key players. And I guess we can kind of talk about it too. Some of their players might move on. Milo Rashica, who's one of their best attackers, most likely will be leaving the club. So Bremen will be looking for playmakers next year. And I think, if Josh can continue to improve, I think he can step into that role for them. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And an important point is, like you mentioned, just all those areas that a striker really needs to improve, and kind of those little things where, some maybe don't have right away, that he's able to hold up play, passing and tracking back and even getting involved in defending, things like that. But now just to see him finalize, and finish in the execution in the final third and goals and assists, things like that, Austin, where, I think there's points to it where it needs to be on him to improve that, but also, like you said, some players leaving here and there, but he needs some good quality players around him, and I think whether it was some injury factors or just poor performances and in team camaraderie wasn't there. I'm glad they were able to stay up, but like you mentioned, he didn't really have as many opportunities. Some of the lower teams where you do have to excel and really pick those few chances that you get and convert them, or you could find yourself on the bench. So I hope they get a little more help with him to help them, whether it's in the midfield or with some creative playmakers or wingers, alongside. But again, like you said, I think he has all the tools and tangibles to succeed, and I'm so excited that they're staying up.
Yeah, and I think this whole process of going through the relegation playoff was, I think it served Bremen well, to be completely honest. I think it kind of brought out, or maybe I should say, it brought them closer together. And I think, for all their flaws that they have as a team, and they've been showcased very well throughout the season. I think it's a testament to the job that I've ragged on him before. Florian Kohfeldt has done, and I can't rag on him at the moment because he kept his team in the Bundesliga. So I think if they can kind of just hit the reset button a little bit this offseason, obviously finances are going to be tight with COVID. So if they can kind of just spend wisely, some of their players are going to leave from loan because they have so many loan players, and then some players are going to come back from loan. They have a lot of young players out on loan at the moment. So hopefully, some of those players can kind of step in and fill roles and kind of, make the team less stale, so to speak, less going into next year. So that's my hope for Bremen and Josh. So yeah, I think that's all for this part of our episode today. Pat, how about we head over to Quick Kicks?
So guys, I think you know what time it is. I'm certainly excited to get this kicked off and starting. And I know Austin is as well. Kind of gave it away there, but it's none other than Quick Kicks.
So you could test Duane Miller. It's Altidore over the wall, and that one is in! Josie Altidore from a long way out. The opening goal for the United States.
And to start off Quick Kicks, we're going to head over to the Hobros, our boys, Austin, where Emmanuel, Sabbi, and Christian Cappis both started. So we'll start with Christian there, where he started and played the full 60 minutes, and had about 90% passing accuracy, some great interceptions. So it's nice to see him make an impact. But Emmanuel Sabbi had a fantastic goal, his 7th of the season, where he was weaving in and out and dropped a player and fall to the ground. A nice curving shot in the left. So unfortunately, it was not enough against Randers in a 3-2 loss, but nice to see him get in the score sheet.
Yeah, that's good. And moving over to Italy, we have Andrija Novakovich. So Andrija started and played 77 minutes in Frosinone's 2-1 win. So congrats to Andrija as they look for promotion there.
That's awesome. That's our boy. And, heading over to the Premier League with Indiana Vassilev and Aston Villa, it was nice to see him get on the 84th minute. An unfortunate loss 2-0 against Liverpool. But again, it was his first appearance since January. So, again, awesome to see him get some minutes.
Yeah, and moving over to Austria, we got to talk about our guy as well, Jesse Marsch. So Jesse helped secure the Austrian League title with Red Bull Salzburg last week, and then was also named Austrian Coach of the Year. So congrats to him. Doing big things as always. So yeah, nice.
That's great news. Potentially a future USMNT coach, maybe, but
fingers crossed.
Conversation for another time. But going to the championship with Reading, and Matt Miazga has been involved in a pretty big scuffle where a little while back we were suspended for 3 games with Derby's Tom Lawrence. So some punches thrown, slaps. We're hoping that Miazga can keep a cool head, keep his head down, and finish out the loan, and hopefully, keep improving.
Yeah, that was, not surprising, I guess, so to speak, but definitely an eyebrow raiser. And staying in England, we have Cameron Carter-Vickers. So Cameron started and played 90 minutes for Luton Town, but unfortunately that was in a 5-0 loss to Reading. So had a good game in his return, but you know, kind of that's disappointing. But moving on.
Yeah, that's tough, Austin. And Antonee Robinson, you know, again, with a great string of performances here, you know, fully healthy, but unfortunately it was involved in a 3-0 loss for Brentford. And again, he has plenty of suitors and really looking to potentially be sold here. But, you know, Wigan is kind of in shambles with their ownership, some staff not being paid. So not a great situation there. But nonetheless, and I believe you mentioned that Antonee Robinson was involved in the, you know, team of the month there and just producing fantastically since you know, the return from COVID.
Yeah, he's definitely kind of taking his game to the next level, and like you said, has a lot of suitors. So we'll have to keep an eye on that for the summer. And staying in the championship for our final player today, we have Duane Holmes. So Duane started and played 66 minutes in Derby County's 1-1 draw with Nottingham Forest. So you know, good to see, you know, Duane still getting consistent playing time. And, you know, we got to finish our episode today with another Young Ya. And today's Young Ya is Adam Armour. So Adam is an 18-year-old fullback, just signed with FC Nuremberg in the 2 Bundesliga. And, yeah, he's going to start out with their U19s. You know, their U19s play a league down. Roberto Hadigan is also on their team over there in Germany. So kind of cool to see that American connection. And then also, you know, Adam was formerly of the U17 team, which, you know, had their own unfortunate demise in the U17 World Cup. But yeah, and he came from North Carolina FC. So, you know, congrats to them for producing a good player here. So definitely keep your eyes on Adam. He's he's got good pace and is a good you know, right back in a spot now that I think he can continue to excel and help his game. And as always, guys, thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel down below.
And also, don't forget to check out our Instagram, Twitter, all that social media. Like I always say, we're putting out that great content for you guys, especially with all these games during the week. It's almost like an NBA or a baseball or hockey kind of season where there's multiple games at a time. So don't miss out.
That's right, especially with the transfer season coming up here in a little bit. You know, I think some teams' windows are going to open up July 15th, if I'm not mistaken. So we might get to see some Americans making some moves. So yeah, and you know, I think that's it for today's episode, Pat. So I guess that leaves just one thing left to be said.
That's right, Austin, and take it from here.
And that will be, one day we will win the World Cup.